Streaming now, this is the Wood TV Live Desk.
Good afternoon, everyone. Phil Pinarski here with the Wood TV Live Desk. Hope you're all having a great start to your day. Joining us on the Live Desk, as he has every single day so far this week, is digital reporter Matt Jarowski, and he's going to continuously talk about his series that's been going on woodtv.com. If you've not seen it yet, it is on the endangered species, specifically here in Michigan. But today we're going to be talking about something a little bit more broad, something across all of America. Matt, thank you so much for being here once again.
Yeah, anytime, Phil.
And let's just go ahead and jump in it. If people that are watching can obviously see from the title that we're going to be talking about the honeybee and its dying population here in really across America. It's been sort of talked about for quite some time now. What exactly is going on with the honeybee population, Matt?
A lot of things. So honeybees are experiencing pretty precipitous die-off. This started about 20 years ago is when they really started noticing the numbers starting to build up. And so because the honeybee is such a vital part, and this is really what the story gets into, not just part of our environment, how important it is to our ecosystems, but for the American economy. Like, this is a very important creature. They are really closely tied to our agriculture industry. So the USDA was really quick to jump in and try to figure out what was going on. And really what they found were a lot of reasons. There wasn't like one specific thing. But honeybees are dying off quickly, and a lot of local native species. There's a lot of other just bees. So the main issue is that there's an invasive parasite that's become a big problem. It's called the Varroa mite. Basically, it just kind of plants larvae into the hive, and the larvae will feed, and then even the adults will feed on the adult the bees as well, and it really kind of wipes out hives. That's really impacting not just like wild hives. Almost all wild hives are dealing with that to some extent, but even like the carefully cultivated beekeeper beehives. A study out of North Carolina State in 2017 found that 44% of those hives are also dealing with this mite. So that's a big problem. The other ones are more related to like habitat loss and flower loss. So one of the issues that's hurting the honeybees especially is something they refer to it as poor nutrition. Basically, these bees feed off pollen, but they really need a diverse amount of pollen, not just like from a handful of specific kind of flowers. They need to get pollen from all sorts of other plants, because if they don't do that, then they're not getting certain vitamins, and that weakens the hive as well. So a lot of moving parts, but good thing is there are some actionable steps that we can take to try to rebuild those numbers.
Right, yeah, and we're going to get to that in just a little bit, Matt. But, you mentioned it briefly. I really want to emphasize sort of a big part of the article, and that really is just, the economic impact of all of this and, like, the outside, because everybody thinks about, the pollination aspect to losing the honeybee and everything, but there's so much more out there that this impacts.
Right, yeah. Bees are really the expert I talked to said the number one pollinator ever is wind, which is kind of funny. It makes sense. But besides the wind, bees, and specifically honeybees, are kind of number one with a bullet. They do so much for flowers, but also fruit and vegetable plants as well, as far as spreading that pollen to help those plants grow and blossom. So they believe it's USDA estimated, I believe it's $20 billion annually of income is kind of tied to honeybee pollination, not to mention $30 million that on average we generate through honey sales. So definitely a lot of money there.
Right. No, and then you and I were talking before the stream started of just kind of how this really does sort of correlate with another species we talked about earlier this week, the long-eared bat. If you could just kind of tell the people a little bit about how that's all connected.
Yeah, so we were talking about this earlier, the northern long-eared bat, which we talked about on Wednesday, which was also a really interesting story, which is available on woodtv.com. So why the bats are so important. they're also important to our agriculture sector is because they feast on bugs. At least up here in like the northern Midwest part of the state, tropical bats eat more fruits and other things, but here in the United States, we're focused on bugs. And so for our farmers, the more bats that are out there eating these bugs, the less pesticides they need to use. If they need to counteract that, because we're losing part of our bat population, if they need to counteract that by using more pesticides, those pesticides are also hurting the honeybee. So less bats means more pesticides, and more pesticides means less honeybees. So all in all, you can see how that's all quickly tied in together. There's a class of pesticides called neonicotinoids, which is pretty popular. And some farmers, like it's something that's known in the farming community, but the conservation experts I was talking to said it's not that the farmers don't know about it, it's that the products they're buying, they don't necessarily realize that they have these, they call them neonics, just populated into, whether it's a fertilizer or even the seeds that they buy could be coated with it. And it comes down to like the inadvertent side effect of, yes, we're trying to use these pesticides to help our crops grow and keep those bugs away, but those toxins are also leaching into other aspects of the ecosystem. And that one particularly is hitting the honeybee hard as well.
Right, it's all just one giant domino effect, really, Matt. And you kind of teased it a little bit earlier in this conversation just about some of the somewhat simple steps that we ourselves can take to really help fix this problem.
Yeah, trying to avoid pesticide use whenever possible is really kind of the big one as far as what you can do to help the honeybee. You can also make a point of planting flowering gardens, specifically native plants to help the native bees. And in my story online, there actually is a hyperlink to a list from the MSU extension that kind of gives you a list of specific plants that are really good for helping Michigan bees. So I definitely encourage people to check that out. They're also conservationists are encouraging anyone who wants to kind of raise their voice to reach out to lawmakers and to talk about the Farm Bill, specifically a part of legislation that's trying to move past neonics to give farmers more opportunities to explore and use other pesticides that don't involve these toxins that are killing our bees. So that's really the big thing, is just doing your part to try to help the bees instead of hurt them. I think the quote is, one of the guys he told me, and I'm pretty sure I included it in the article, is we're inviting these bees into our yards or our gardens or whatever. Let's help them, not hurt them. So let's give them plants to help them pollinate, and let's not use the pesticides that they're going to bring back to their hive.
Right, and once again, this story about the honeybee and really what we can do to help and what's really going on with the population is available right now for you to check out over on our website, woodtv.com. And Matt, this was the 5th of a 5-part series, really all throughout Earth Week, just kind of focusing on these endangered species here in Michigan and across the country. I want to ask you now, what was sort of your big takeaway from covering this specific topic and really doing a lot more research into these specific species? Sometimes we just see the names and we're like, oh, that's on the endangered species list now, but you actually took a further step and really went in depth and looked over all the information regarding them.
Yeah, I feel like my number one takeaway was, so I know when I put it together, there's, as of March in Michigan, there are 60 threatened species and 60 endangered species. But the truth is, the list is much longer than that. They have a lot that are just listed as special concern, or animals that they are keeping an eye on because they are at risk of falling into one of those other two categories. And in the research, it was just kind of realizing just how much work goes into trying to protect the creatures in our ecosystem that really make it work. I mean, there's one thing to remove a certain animal out of the ecosystem that obviously we want to keep these animals around because they deserve to live here just as much as we do, and we don't want our actions to force them into extinction. But there are others that we really rely upon, and then it's important for us to keep them alive and thriving. And so the action, just the sheer amount of manpower that goes into it is pretty mind-blowing.
Right, no, and it's been really great checking out these stories and really learning a lot more about them. And I do want to remind everybody that you can find all 5 parts of this series, the one on the honeybee, the lake sturgeon, piping plover, long-eared northern bat. Matt, I am blanking on the last one here, but they were all fantastic.
Kirtland snake.
Yes. The
snake,
one we
yeah.
did yesterday about the snake. I probably forgot about it because I don't really mess with snakes like that. But you know what? It's still a great, very important read on that one. Definitely a different element added in that one. I'm not going to tease anything here, but you know, I want everybody to check it out. Again, all 5 of those stories can be found right now over on our website, woodtv.com. Matt, it's been a pleasure having you on the live desk once again. We hope you have a great rest of your day.
Oh, no problem, Phil. Thank you.
And I hope everybody else has a great rest of their day as well. Thank you so much for tuning into this latest edition of the Wood TV Live Desk.